In this episode, a look at the role that hydrogen has to play in a future that's powered by renewable energy. More specifically, we're going to dive into some of the research that's helping to tackle the challenges and helping to realize the potential of using hydrogen as a way to store power that's generated from renewable sources like wind and solar.
There's a goal to decarbonize the grid in the US by 2035. So can we make the grid entirely renewable so we don't have to burn coal, to burn natural gas? And so to do that, we're going to need some storage options. So existing technology, batteries today, or batteries they expect by 2035, can do that up to 80, maybe even 85%. So that was great news. That made me happy. But they said that that's not enough. We need to get that last 15 to 20%. And we need novel approaches, novel ways to do that. Batteries just aren't going to be able to do 100%. Hydrogen is one way to do that, and that's the area we're focused on.
I'd like now to turn to the work that you all are doing to help address some of the challenges and questions related to storing and transporting the hydrogen.
Currently, the way that's done is either with compressed hydrogen gas, and so the Toyota Mirai is a great example. They're using special carbon fiber tanks to be able to hold pressures to 10,000 psi, 700 bar. And so those are really high pressures. You need to have a really thick metal, but that's too heavy for a car. So for transport, you want something light, so they use carbon fibers. But there's also liquid hydrogen, and that's really hard to beat because it's all hydrogen and it's a liquid. But and NASA does a great job with this. They have huge dewars where they can store hydrogen, but they're storing it at really low temperatures, 20 Kelvin. I don't know, it's like minus 250 degrees Celsius. I can't remember what that is in Fahrenheit.
It's very, very, very cold.
We're very, very cold, yes.
You all are working on a third option, which is?
Yeah, our third option is looking at storing hydrogen in chemical bonds. We're chemists. We know we like to make carbon hydrogen bonds and break carbon hydrogen bonds. And so can we be creative in how we do that?
The idea being that hydrogen, and correct me if much of this is way off target, but hydrogen being a gas and being I'm going to call it sort of a squirrely gas that wants to get away before we can use it. And so the idea with chemical bonding it is, can we attach it to something else that wants it to sit in place and just kind of behave, hold it in solution in a as you said, at room temperature, ambient pressure kind of way, until we say, okay, now we need it again to create some energy. Is that am I putting this in the right terms?
No, that's a good description. So by binding it to a molecule, it helps to squeeze it down into a much smaller space that makes you could transport it in a plastic container.
Then we get to, what are you choosing to form that chemical bond to sort of grab onto the the hydrogen. My balloon analogy threw me off. To grab onto the hydrogen, in other words, not using a chemical to store hydrogen that itself is hazardous or toxic or causes problems that we don't want. That green chemistry perspective of, let's solve this challenge while avoiding other environmental human health problems.
One of the molecules that has really piqued our interest more recently is what I like to call modified baking soda. So baking soda is sodium bicarbonate, and we're looking at potassium bicarbonate because it's more, in the long run, you can get more hydrogen onto the potassium bicarbonate. And so potassium bicarbonate, the one way to get potassium bicarbonate is from CO2. And so if our whole goal is to reduce the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, the icing on the cake would be, can we use that CO2 to store and transport energy? It's taking CO2 out of the atmosphere and using it to do something positive. And the goal is that you cycle it back and forth, so you can remove the hydrogen when you need it, and then when you have excess energy, you make hydrogen and you put it back on the molecule and store it for when you need it next.
what gets you out of bed to do this work each day? What draws you to do this work?
I love what I'm doing. You're right. And sometimes it's two steps forward, one step back. Sometimes it's one step forward, two steps back. We know there's a pressing challenge. We know we need to come up with unique solutions. But it's solving a puzzle, I guess. That's what, maybe just, once it's frustrating. And then when it all comes together, it's extremely rewarding.